Alright guys, just an update on the hospital situation. So I had a suspicious mole on the back of my lower right leg, and because I have disability, arthrogryposis, multiplex congenitor, which means I have stiff joints and weak muscles, and I'm a full-time powered wheelchair user and have very limited movement in my hands and arms, I had to go to the hospital to have this mole removed. And when I went to the initial appointment where they just looked at the mole, which I've been calling Bob the Blob, by the way. So if I refer to it as Bob, that's why. So in the first appointment where they just looked at Bob, I was told that during the procedure to remove it, I would have to either be on my stomach or my side. And neither of those positions would be very comfortable for me. To be honest, they'd be too painful, and so I did agree to the side just because it would be less painful than the stomach, but still I was very anxious about this beforehand. But I needn't have been, because I had a lot of lovely people looking after me in the hospital that day. So I arrived at the hospital at 7:30 a.m. at the arse crack of dawn. I was admitted by a really nice nurse, and then my obs were taken by a very nice man called Lennon. And then he was very concerned for me because my heart was racing at 150 beats per minute, which was quite concerning for them. But I explained it's because I was very anxious about what was going to happen that day. And so I think they were okay with that explanation, and they sort of let it go, but they did have to keep checking me every so often to make sure I was okay, I think. And then there was this really nice nurse called Amy, and she came and talked to me about all of the things that were making me anxious that day. And that sort of put me at ease because she understood. She actually has a daughter with a disability, so she has disability awareness, which a lot of NHS staff don't really have. I mean, I think most of them just look after people when they're ill or temporarily disabled, like by having broken bones and whatnot, those sorts of situations. They don't often look after someone who's got a lifelong disability, I don't think. But yeah, everyone was lovely, and my sister was allowed to stay with me on the ward since she is my main carer as well. Otherwise, I would just be left to my own devices. And I think that would be fine, but I need so much help that I don't think it would be doable for the ward staff to just keep coming over to me when they've got other people to tend to as well. So I thought it best to take my sister with me. So my sister was able to help with hoisting me onto the bed on the ward. And then, I was actually number one on the list for surgery that day. So I was down to go to theatre at 9 a.m. I'd spoken to a member of the surgical team, whose name was Si, by the way, and I'd asked him all of my questions that I'd got written down, so I didn't forget any of them. And I also asked him if there was any other way that this procedure could possibly be done without me going on my stomach or my side. And he said that we could possibly do it while I was lying on my back with my leg up in the air. And I was like, oh yes, please, if that's possible, can we please do that? So he said he would speak to the surgeon and let me know once I arrived in theatre. So almost immediately I started feeling better about the whole thing. It wasn't the actual procedure that was making me nervous at all, to be honest. I was not nervous about that in the slightest, because I knew that the area would be numb and I would not feel anything, so that was not a problem for me at all. So then I was still being admitted at that point after I'd spoken to the member of the surgical team. And so the nurse was still filling in all the paperwork. And then she asked me, is there a chance you could be pregnant? Well, I was thinking to myself, chance would be a fine thing. But no. I said, no, there isn't. And she was just like, well, we just need to check. We need you to do a pregnancy test. It's like, what, right now? It was at 9 o'clock. I was due to go down to theatre at that moment. And, well, then I had to be hoisted up and do a wee, basically. And I was like, I hadn't had a drink. I was like, I don't think I can produce any wee. So then I drank some water, and, well, then I thought, I can't wait now for this water to go through me. I really need to get to theatre on time. So I was like, right, I think I can squeeze some out. How much wee do you need? Well, we just need a dribble. So I was like, okay, I can squeeze out a dribble. So we got the hoist back, hoisted me up. My sister held a pan underneath. I had a wee, and then I'd missed my slot. Somebody else went to theatre in my place. And so then I was just waiting until I think it must have been about 10 past 11 in the morning. And by this point, my heart rate had dropped to about 103, down from 150 that it was originally. I think just because the hoisting had been done by that point. And I know I get hoisted all the time, but at home I use a ceiling hoist, which I'm completely used to. There's no bars for my feet to hit against. And so when I have to use a mobile hoist, that sort of makes me anxious too. But everything was fine with that, and that had been done. So my heart rate had come down since that was over and done with. And then I was wheeled on my bed to the operating theatre. And that was all fine, because when I got there, the guy from the surgical team who I'd spoken to previously confirmed that they would be able to do it without turning me on my side or my front. And so the surgeon, Mr. Rashid, he sent for a wedge to put under my leg to keep it up in the air, and made sure I was comfortable and everything was fine. And then the guy from the surgical team, Si, held my leg up when it needed to be higher and just rested it against this wedge for the rest of the time. And yeah, it was everything was fine. The leg was completely numb in the area around the mole. And I think the worst part of the experience was actually the injection. The injection that they give you to numb it. That was quite painful, to be honest. Oh, and also they asked me when I got to the theatre if I would like any music playing, and I was like, have you got Michael Jackson? Yes, we have. We have got Michael Jackson. So Michael Jackson was playing throughout the whole procedure. And I think at one point, Blood on the Dance Floor was playing, which is very fitting for this situation, I think. And there was a very nice nurse called Andy who kept me distracted throughout the whole procedure and was talking to me about Disney and Marvel and all that good stuff. And the whole procedure took 10 minutes, just 10 minutes, and it was done. And then Bob the Blob had left the building, and I was now a completely Bob-free zone. But I even asked to have a look at it after, and it was quite gross. It was in this little pot filled with some kind of liquid, and it was just sort of floating around in there. And no, I don't have a picture. I didn't have my phone with me in the operating theatre. So then I was wheeled back on my bed to the ward. And then, of course, they can't just let you go. They have to make sure that you're all okay after the procedure. And so Lennon made me some porridge and some decaffeinated coffee, which was really nice. And he checked my obs again just to make sure. And then my heart rate was at 93 by that point. So, well, I think it confirmed what I was saying beforehand about the anxiousness for them. Not that they didn't believe me before, but I think that just confirmed everything. So then once I'd eaten and drank while sitting up in bed, then I was hoisted back into my chair, and the nurse released me with all my paperwork and told me to book an appointment with my GP nurse, who I'll be seeing twice following the procedure, and gave me some extra dressings just in case this one came off in the meantime before seeing the nurse. But it's really stuck on there. It's really, really on there. It hasn't come off at all, and it's been 5 days now since the procedure. Don't know how the nurse is even going to get it off, to be honest. So that's that. I am now bobless, and I have to now wait for the biopsy results. So they wanted to check it just in case it wasn't anything sinister. And they said the results would arrive within 3 weeks from the procedure. I did actually ask the surgeon what it looked like, and he said it didn't look like cancer to him, but it just needed seeing too. So there we are. Some encouraging news. And so, yeah, this was another positive experience with the hospital. I was very pleasantly surprised. Everything went smoothly, apart from the pregnancy test thing, which they could have really told me that I needed to do sooner than that. But yeah, everything else went well. And I've had literally minimal pain as well. So that's good. I haven't had to take any pain relief because it's just not that bad. I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being no pain at all and 10 being the worst pain that I've ever felt. It's been around a 2 or a 3, so nothing major. So let me know in the comments about your hospital experiences, the good and the bad. And a big shout out to everyone who was involved in my care on that day. My sister, who was allowed to stay with me, Mr. Rashid, Sai, Amy, Lennon, Andy, Shan, Julie, and the nurse whose name I can't remember, sorry. But yes, thank you to all those people who made a difference that day. And thanks for listening to me waffle on about my latest hospital appointment. I don't know why I'm always so anxious about hospitals. I think because when I was a child, I was never in control of these situations. The decision to have operations was always made for me. And then because I was a child, I didn't understand that it was for my own good. And I just saw it as a big, painful experience. And so I think that's just what stuck with me, to be honest. So yeah, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you all soon.